Hello, everybody. Melinda Pollen, Brown County 4-H Youth Development Educator. It's Thursday, which means it's Transformation Thursday. And today we're going to see if we can learn some extra special skills and do some egg experiments, becoming egg explorers. You might guess it. We're going to learn at home this week about eggs and what makes an egg and how they are the same and different. Let's get started by looking at a couple of eggs. Did you know that there are lots of colors of eggs? The eggs that we typically get at a grocery store are white, like the ones on the left side of our screen. But depending on the type of bird that's laying the egg, the shell of the egg can be different colors. So we can have brown eggs, we can have green eggs, we could have even some blue eggs, and we can have speckled eggs like the ones on the top right part of our screen. The breed of the bird makes different shelled colors. Although the outside of our eggs are different colors, the inside of our eggs are very, very similar. So let's take a peek at the inside of what an egg looks like. There's lots of words on that screen, but I really just want to look at a couple of them. Every egg has an outside shell. So it has that brownish line around the outside is the shell of the egg. And every egg has that. Every egg also has the yolk in the middle, that orangish, darkish yellow color in the middle, and that is the nutrient value of the egg. That's where our minerals and our nutrients come from, is right in that heart of that egg there. And then right outside of that is what we sometimes call the egg whites. The real name for that is the albumin. And there are two kinds of albumin. There's the albumin that's very close to the yolk. It's very thick, and you might have guessed it, it's called the thick albumin. And as we go further out from the yolk and closer to the shell, it gets thinner, and that is called the thin albumin. The albumin protects that yolk from getting stuck to the outsides of the shell. There's also an air cell. You might see it right here in the right-hand corner of the egg here. You'll see that little air pocket. There's an air pocket that protects that egg from the shell as well, keeps it from like a little padding almost. And because there's air there, you might also see in one of our egg experiments in a minute, you might also see some air bubbles that come up because some of our eggs have little baby holes in them that we can't see with our eyes, but we'll see them in a little bit as part of our experiment. So for our experiment today, we are going to we'll reflect and we'll apply what we've learned, the same thing that we've done for the last couple of weeks in our 4-H challenges. It reflects a lot of what we do in the real world in the engineering design process. We gather information, design prototypes, test the prototypes and improve them over time. We're going to do that exact same thing here, except we're going to do it with eggs. So let's get started with our activity. To get started, what you're going to need in the comment section of this video, there will be a downloadable data sheet. You can also make it yourself if you don't have access to a printer or you don't want to print it. You could just make one yourself. I'll show you a close-up in just a minute of what that looks like, but you'll need some very basic things: paper, markers, pencils, some eggs, of course, a couple of bowls, rulers, string, a clear jar. In our case, we used a clear glass. You'll need some hot water, and if you have one, a kitchen scale. So the first thing that we're going to do is pass out eggs to each of the young people that are joining us. We're going to pass out 3 eggs. We labeled them in our house so that we could tell which egg was number 1, number 2, and number 3, and we're just going to look at them. Do they look the same size? Do they feel the same weight? How could we measure these eggs? So we're going to get started by actually measuring the distance, the diameter of the egg, and also the weight. So the first thing you're going to do is pass every young person a piece of string, and you'll each need a ruler, or we used a measuring tape even. And what you're going to do is wrap that string around the middle of the egg horizontally. And when your ribbons come together, that's the distance of your diameter, and we're going to measure that on that ruler for you. So mark where that ends and measure that on your ruler or your tape measure, and then write that number inside of your egg size data sheet. Repeat that for all of your other eggs that are part of the group. And then we're going to measure the vertical length of the egg. So you're going to wrap that string around the top to bottom vertically this time instead of horizontally, and measure that same process. Measure out and see how long that goes on your ruler or your tape measure, writing down your answers in your data sheet. And the last step, if you have a kitchen scale, we have a digital one, but you might have a non-digital one. Either one works just fine. Invite them to weigh their eggs one at a time and see how much they weigh. Writing those answers again on your data sheet. Once you've done that for all three of your eggs, now we get to make some discussions. We can have a discussion on which one is bigger in height, in width, in weight, and why that might be true. We found that there are some ties in height and width, but there's a definite winner in weight in our experiment. And we're going to check for those little holes that may or may not be in your eggs. And so when you look at the egg, have those young people take a peek at the egg and look at it really closely in their hand and see if they see any holes. We didn't see any in our house. Maybe you will. But we're going to test that to see if there are indeed little holes in that egg. So we put that egg in the bottom of a clear jar, and we're going to fill up. Parents or adults carefully pour some hot water over the top of that egg and then observe. And what you might see is what we found here in our experiment is that little bubbles, and they're very hard to see in the pictures, but little bubbles started kind of coming and bubbling out of that egg. That is where there's a hole in the shell, and it's getting into that little air pocket that we talked about earlier in the image. The air is bubbling out through that hole and making its way up to the top of the water. You might see them in the top view as well, so make sure you're looking around the sides of your glass to see if you have any holes in your eggs. Now that we've seen that, the last part of our experiment is to see what the inside of the egg looks like and really identify those parts of the egg. So giving every young person 2 bowls and having them crack 1 egg into each bowl. Eggs sometimes crack, right? And so sometimes the yolk can crack, and that's okay. You can still see in both of those pictures, there's a yolk and there's an albumin. You can even see, if you look carefully, the thick albumin and the thin albumin in both of these pictures, even though the yolk has cracked. Compare your eggs. Make some, just have a conversation about how are they alike and how are they different. The last part is for just to draw a picture. What did you learn? There are some question eggs. I love those. There's some question eggs over there. What's inside of me? Are all of my friends, our other eggs, are they all the same size? And do my shells have any holes? And then have them draw a picture about yolks and what's inside of them. And if they have holes, you can just have them be creative and create their own story through pictures or words. Experiment isn't over here, though. We have lots more to learn about eggs. You can have more conversations, what was the same and what was different, but you can also consider more challenging experiments. Will hard boiling an egg make it weigh more? I don't know. We could test that one out. Will an egg roll at different speeds if it were on a different surface, a carpet versus a tiled floor, or a grass versus a sidewalk? Can you get an egg to roll in a straight line? When you spin a raw egg, what happens? And when you spin a hard-boiled egg, what happens? And why? And you can also check out your local library for books. Lots of children's books will talk more about what is inside of an egg and how they all work. Lots more to explore this week when we learn about eggs. But when you're done with this specific experiment, we would love to see some pictures of your creations. Take some photos and post them up on social media using a couple of hashtags, hashtag WI4H and hashtag Inspire Kids to Do. That helps us to create a community of like learners that are also doing experiments together, and really is exciting for us as educators to see you using and doing the activities that we are putting out. And thank you so much for joining us on this Transformation Thursday. We hope that you have fun with your experiments, and we hope to see some photos up on social media. Reach out if you have any questions or we can do anything else for you. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.